Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the Martin Bakole and Sergey Kuzmin fight, which was on the undercard of the Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev fight in London. So this was a more tactical affair and maybe less fireworks than many of us expected. But Martin Bakole gets the win, gets a unanimous decision 98-92, 97-93 and 96-94. So I had this one at 96-94, and it was a funny old fight in the way that it played out, because Martin Bakole sort of, from the opening, was cautious. He was boxing at range, and then we had all action in round two, and this is where Martin Bakole had a lot of success, but because he sort of gave up the distance and range, Sergey Kuzmin was in that round and also landing some shots. Both, I believe, did hurt each other in that round. Martin Bakole did dip a bit when he got hit near the end of the round, and Kuzmin was taking some heavy leather early on. But rounds 2, 5 and 8, it sort of seemed to be some sort of pattern that Martin Bakole would either take the round off, or maybe it was a tactical shift just to sort of assess where Kuzmin was at, because he was giving up the range, the distance. He was allowing Kuzmin to work, in close, up on his chest, and he would just sort of duke it out with him. But it was in these rounds that Sergey Kuzmin, particularly round 5 and 8, which I gave to Kuzmin, that Kuzmin was having his best success, and it was the path to victory for Sergey Kuzmin was fighting that inside fight. But then Martin Bakole, as I said, that was rounds 2, 5 and 8. Between times, he would box at range. He was popping that jab, racking up rounds on the back of the jab, and in those rounds where he was keeping it long and throwing long right hands, etc., Sergey Kuzmin really wasn't able to fire too many shots. So it was a bizarre old fight that Martin Bakole just sort of kept chopping and changing. But on the back of the jab, for me, most of the rounds he was winning. Rounds 3, 4, he went back to the jab, in particular round 7, also round 9. But I did give Sergey Kuzmin round 8 because he landed a harder shot towards the end of the bell. There wasn't much of anything in that round. And also, I thought he finished the stronger of the two. But for me, it wasn't enough. And even if I turned around round 2, I could have at best made it a draw, but I think that Sergey Kuzmin just really didn't do enough in this fight, and that came down to Martin Bakole when he decided to keep it long. With those long levers, the height and the reach advantages, he was able to make the most of those advantages and land the jab, and he made it difficult for Sergey Kuzmin to stay in those rounds. But I guess one thing has to be said through this fight. Martin Bakole's defense wasn't great. When he was keeping it long, obviously that was more tricky for Sergey Kuzmin, but different rounds where he gave up the height and the reach advantages, he was getting tagged a lot, and Sergey Kuzmin landing a lot of right hands, overhand rights, one of his best power punches. And a couple of times I thought, he did look like he got rocked from a shot, but he really wasn't moving his head, in some of those rounds. But then you would see him slipping shots and looking quite, defensively responsible in other rounds. So clearly he's got, the ability to do it when he wants to do it. But I did wonder if energy, maybe for those rounds where he gave up the height and the reach, if his gas tank was, he was taking a break. That's what it sort of seemed to be somewhat, but it was also like he wanted to bang it out in those rounds with Kuzmin. But 98-92, and that was also from Marcus McDonnell, who had a controversial result from the first fight of the night with Florian Marku. Marku beat his man, but ultimately it was called a draw. So Marcus McDonnell delivering another, I would say it's slightly unfair on Sergey Kuzmin. I think 96-94, obviously that's the way I scored it. I thought that was a fair result of the fight. And round 7, which you could have given either way, so I could have had it either 96-94 or 97-93, and at a push, if I was to give everything to Sergey Kuzmin, 95 even. So where to from now for Martin Bakole? Well, I think it's going to be interesting now, because that wasn't a super impressive performance, given what we've seen from Sergey Kuzmin in the past couple of years. Remembering he laboured to a majority decision win against Joey DeVeco, and he probably lost that fight. He got dominated by Michael Hunter. And this fight, even though he didn't disgrace himself, I don't think it necessarily reflects too greatly on Martin Bakole, because I was expecting a much more dominant performance. I was expecting Martin Bakole to win, but just with a bit more flair and I guess aggression, and I thought he would be able to land more of significance on Sergey Kuzmin. There was one or two shots early in the fight, round 2, where he did look to hurt Kuzmin to some extent. Wasn't able to capitalize, wasn't able to drop Sergey Kuzmin as Michael Hunter had done. And Michael Hunter is not necessarily considered the biggest puncher, so maybe the jury is out on the performance by Martin Bakole to some extent, but a win is a win is a win. And afterwards he was calling out Michael Hunter, saying that he does want that rematch. He said, "Michael Hunter, you ready? Let's do it again." And these two have had a little bit of back and forth on social media where they've sort of said, look, we could do it in the Congo, etc., etc. And if they were to have that fight today, I think that Michael Hunter would go in the favourite, and I think deservedly so. I think that in-and-out style from Michael Hunter is a style that Martin Bakole is still going to have some problems with. I do think he has gotten better since 2018, but I guess the question is it enough? I guess people will debate that, but it was a very sort of odd performance, a very tactical performance against Sergey Kuzmin, which was smart, but it wasn't necessarily, I think, what fans were expecting in terms of, for the style matchup. This looked like he might be able to really lay it on Sergey Kuzmin and potentially even stop him, because he has been stopping all manner of tough, durable gatekeepers and journeymen, including Marius Vuk, but he never looked like he really got close. I mean, I guess the question has to be asked, did maybe he hurt his right hand in there or something? I don't know. But yeah, I think a few people will not be terribly impressed by what they saw, but at the end of the day, a win is a win, and it was a crossroads fight, and he needed to win it to get to the next step, whatever that step is going to be. For Sergey Kuzmin, again, I think it has to be a good style matchup for him to really impress. He has to have someone standing right there in front of him. For all his amateur pedigree and experience, really against the guys that have, significant height and reach advantages over him, he's a bit too flat-footed to really do too much about it. So I don't know where he goes from here, but he can still be in some fun fights, but the matchups, the style matchups, have to be right for him and the way that he fights. But it was apparent, though, that even ahead of the fight, the DAZN feed, that was the commentary that I had, they had clearly not seen these two guys fight much, or if all, the way that they were talking about it, it was, you would have thought that Sergey Kuzmin was this absolute dominant fighter, and they were basically, it seemed to be, predicting that he was going to win this, and in his experience, the amateur experience was going to be the key to pull him through this. So I don't know, it didn't seem to be that they'd done too much homework or watched many of their recent fights, but the commentary hasn't been flash at all. But what did you make of it? Martin Bakole, he wins, didn't look fantastic at times, but it was a good win in the sense that he used his height and his reach. It was a more tactical fight. You do have to give him credit for relying on the jab, winning on the back of that punch, because ultimately that was the money punch in the fight for him. Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.